Left Coast rocks. Okay, we don't want to get into a political battle. Pierre from Malaysia, very cool. Probably at work. Yeah, I guess you are. Yeah. So thank you for joining me from India. Hi, Parul. Okay, folks, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with a short, very short, I call it a micro meditation. Good evening. And then I'm going to go ahead and, today I'm going to cover something that is a game changer, you guys. It was a game changer for me, and I suspect it's going to be a game changer for you guys. And I tell you, I'm just going to give you a disclaimer. It's not my wisdom. This is something that I've studied for years. It's ancient wisdom. And then as an engineer, I always like to take ancient wisdom and then put it in the context of the lens of modern science. I've compared wisdom from 5,000 years ago with things that are coming out of Harvard University research labs now. And I've put together to understand this concept of how happiness and attention have such a deep connection and what is happening to us as we're getting fragmented with it. So we're going to have a lot of fun. And if you hang with me, your life is going to change at the end of this, I promise. I'm going to do a lot of good news, bad news today. Okay, it's because everything can be just rainbows and unicorns. And then I'm going to dive into some deep meditation practices and have some fun along the way. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So let me go ahead and lead you through this first exercise of centering ourselves and becoming present and arriving. So here's what I want you to do. If you want to go ahead and close your eyes, you're welcome to do that. You want to keep it open and just want to turn your gaze down. So down, turn your gaze. And then I want you to sit upright. And if you're sitting, feet flat on the ground or cross-legged if you feel so comfortable with that position. And then if you're lying down, that's totally fine. Or if you're doing something else that is for your bodily requirements, I totally understand and I encourage you to listen to your body. But whatever you're doing, I just want you to be rested, comfortable, and alert. That's the key there. So what I want you to do now is I want you to take in some deep, comfortable breaths into the belly through the nostril. And then exhale through the mouth. When you're welcome to make the sound of an ocean wave as you exhale, and again breathe in through the nostril and exhale through the mouth. Repeat this. And now I just want you to count each breath down from 10 to 0. So starting at 10, going down. you're welcome to open your eyes. If you had them closed, you're welcome to back into the circle at your own pace. And I want you to take notice of how you feel right now. Take notice of how you feel right now compared to when you came in here, sat down, and started this about 30, maybe 40 seconds ago. Okay, so we did some very simple centering exercise, focusing our attention on something very simple, the anchor of our breath. Okay, and I want you to go ahead and type in for me, how does this feel different from when you walked in here? And I'll just share with you while I'm waiting for your responses to come in. I feel so much more calm. I feel so much more collected, right? Much more grounded, feel much more relaxed. It's calming, exactly, right? And there you folks, I've given you a simple technique on how to hone your skill of focusing your attention. So simple. And you see, the point of that exercise, when I asked you to count from 10 to 0, is really to keep your attention. So, because if I just told you, go ahead and breathe, your mind would be all over the place. But I gave you a very simple exercise and say, okay, you know what? In order for you to know, for you to keep track, you have to pay attention. And notice that when you pay attention, you begin to feel a sense of peace, a slight amount of joy that leads to happiness. So that's the good news. So today, like I said, I'm going to give you lots of good news, bad news. So first of all, I want to share this with you. So once there was a doctor who called a patient, and he says to the patient, listen, we've gone through all of your examination reports, all the lab tests have come in, and I have some good news and bad news, and what do you want to hear? So the patient says, well, I want to hear the good news first. He says, well, the good news is that you're going to die in 24 hours. Well, the patient says, like, wait, what? How can that be good news? Then what's the bad news? The bad news is I've been trying to call you since yesterday. So folks, with any good news that I'm going to share with you today, I'm going to give you the equal and opposite recipe or equal and opposite treatment. I'm going to share with you the reality, the ground truths about how the world that we live in today and how that is not really lending towards you honing in your focus, developing attention, and making yourself feel blissful and happy. So the story goes back to 2012. I was attending a conference here in the Bay Area. It's called Wisdom 2.0. And on the stage, it's a very unique conference. You'll have the founders of Twitter, for example, and a Buddhist monk who runs a monastery somewhere in New Mexico, right? And they'll be deliberating on existential crisis and how can we use technology in ways and we can improve our human experience. So in that particular episode, which I'm going to share with you today, there was the co-founder of Zynga, one of the many 20-year-olds who co-founded that company. And so this guy was sharing how he took an idea, or they took an idea from scratch, from nothing, to making it a $7 billion company. So here's how the story goes. So Guy explains that they did a lot of market research. And in their market research, they tried to understand the neuroscience of the human being. So they delved into all of the different ways in which the human brain secretes or gives out this neurotransmitter called dopamine. And here's what they found. They found something really interesting that they built their business model on. So when a human being is trying to focus on something, they're trying to finish up a project, write a report, cook, talk to somebody, or attending to some kind of business in which they require complete focus. And in that moment of their focus, if they have something that distracts them, for example, like the ding on the phone, like the buzz of your feed, something, a light that flashes, etc., and instead of you focused on whatever it is that you are sitting there to do, you yield to that distraction for just a few seconds, intentional. You want to go there for just a few seconds. You yield to that distraction. And let's say, in the best case scenario, you come back in even a few seconds. the brain emits dopamine, happiness hormone. So these guys, these kids, understood that, and they built a $7 billion empire to basically hack into your need or your addiction to distraction. Okay? So how many people here have seen this documentary that's going around, everybody's going gaga about it, called The Social Dilemma? Right? So in The Social Dilemma, these ex-employees of these mega corporations, these mega multi-billion dollar corporations that now run our planet, such as Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc., they share what is it that they came in for, what is it that they thought. These engineers coming out of college, just brilliant people, they came in with great aspirations to say that we could change humanity with the way we are able to leverage technology, and we can do this incredible innovation and then essentially serve mankind to reach its highest potential. But instead, here's some of the things that they found out as they were going about doing their heads down, putting in their best efforts, creating these amazing technologies that we are all gotten ourselves wrapped in. So first thing is, there was this lady, this book I was reading just the other day. It's by this woman called Anna Wiener, and she's written this book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it if you want to understand the quagmire that is the modern social media industry. Okay, it's called The Uncanny Valley by Anna Wiener. In that book, she goes into great lengths with which she explains how she left her great publishing job as a writer in New York, and she comes out to the West expecting to, change the world as we know it, and, make this amazing technologies reach to places and people across the world in ways in which they can uplift them from their different sets of situations that are holding them back. And instead, what she realizes as she's beginning to go deeper and deeper into what their company, and generally Silicon Valley, she changes a few jobs and she describes it. She says, essentially, these big tech companies are sneakily cashing in on your information. And one of the things that she points out to, which hit me like a thunderbolt, was, do you ever realize, when you are given access to free technology, you have this new widgets and these new gadgets, these new apps, and you never pay anything for it? Do you ever wonder who finances them? Does it ever cross your mind? So here's how she explains it. If you are not paying for the product, you are the product. Sit with that for a second. If you're not paying for a product, you are the product. That means your attention, your focus is what they are selling to someone else. And so they have this massive, complex, really intelligent algorithms that are essentially focused in on making them addictive. And the social media apps and websites are so advanced. They have these people called attention engineers, and their job, these guys are PhDs, and their job is to see how you can spend as much possible time on their app. Quick pop quiz for you guys. The second largest search engine in the world is, I'll tell you, it's YouTube, okay? You probably know that. Do you guys know that if the first largest search engine, Google, owns YouTube, do you know who YouTube's biggest competition is? Your sleep. Sit with that for a second. So the only competition that YouTube faces today is when you get tired and you fall asleep. So they will do anything to keep you hooked. So in the Social Dilemma, the guy explains how it's very akin to going to the slot machine in Las Vegas. You know how you want to keep pressing, keep cranking on that, hoping to get that magic combination of numbers? So when you post something on let's say, of Facebook, you have an addiction, or there's a tendency, there's like a restlessness about how many people have liked my thing, how many people have commented, who has shared this post, right? So you want to keep refreshing, and you see the refreshing of the thing of the page to see how many people have now liked my thing. What's the growth in how is this getting viral or not? It's very akin to you gambling in a casino. So the addictive quality, so think about, what does an addict do? An addict wants to keep coming back, and he or she wants more. And that's exactly what these attention engineers are working on. How can they keep bringing you back so that you'll keep getting that hit, such that you want to keep going further and further, more and more investment into their beautiful coffers of your time and your attention. So at this point, there's been a study done at Ohio State University. An average youth, think of a young adult, so somebody who's like in high school to college, spends about 4.5 hours of screen time a day. And guess what? With COVID, and you and I know this very well, any trend that was already going in a particular direction has only got accelerated. It's been on steroids since we've been on quarantine, since we've been locked down, so we have nowhere else to go. Guess what? All of those numbers for everybody, not just teenagers, is going through the roof. And particularly, I want to talk about teenagers because if you've read anything about the rewiring of the brain that happens during adolescence, and if you don't understand the subject, and if you're responsible for either children or grandchildren, I highly recommend a book by a dear friend of mine, Dr. Dan Siegel, by the name of Brainstorm. It hit the New York Times bestseller list, in which he explains why do young people do these ridiculously harmful things in the name of trying to win friends, to be recognized, to be accepted, right? It is because they're moving from that age of being dependent to independent, from being the receivers to the providers. And this is genetically, it is something that is within our DNA for us to be able to make the transition since we were in the hunter-gatherer state. So it is not surprising that young people will go to any extent to receive the recognition, the appreciation, right? To be considered to be seen better than the rest by their peers. And now that stage has become these social media platforms. And these engineers are completely raking it in. Okay, so technology companies are preying on the subconscious desires of human minds, and they will not stop at anything from gaining profit. Now, the next thing that comes out of this movie or this docudrama, Social Dilemma, is the internet usage is being tracked and recorded to deliver engaging advertisements. So have you ever noticed this thing? That you go to a particular website, let's say you go to an Amazon or you go to a Wayfair or something like, something complete like, a disconnected app, and you're searching for something, and the next time you come back to searching for Google results, or you look at your little pop-up ads that come from a completely unconnected website where you're reading the news. Do you see a surprising connection between what you were searching for in something supposedly on a disjointed app to this other thing that you're now reading? So folks, this is what they refer to as surveillance capitalism. I repeat that. It's called surveillance capitalism, which means that companies now have to understand a 360-degree view of their customers so they can sell you your attention for the greatest bidder, to the greatest bidder who's going to pay for advertisement. And for them to become very good at it, guess what? They have to understand your shopping data, your email, your text messages, where you're traveling, your maps, where you're eating, who you're ordering from, what you're buying, what you're interested in buying, right? So the more holistic or the more comprehensive they can be at being able to procure your mind share, guess what? They have the ability to offer ways to hook you to further feed your interests and your desires unlike ever before. Okay, so these companies are shooting for your attention, your time, and your privacy. So now, with that said, there is hope. So, like all good movies, they end with some ways in which of how we can find positivity. So, because you think about it, tools are tools, technology is technology. It is not by itself good or bad. So, not what we're not what I'm not recommending here, definitely, and what the movie is not talking about, is to go become Luddites and say, I'm going to completely give up using technology. That's not what we say. But there's ways in which we need to put checks and balances into the system. So if we can lobby for our governments to regulate digital privacy and do things like taxing companies for sharing personal data, then perhaps these mega businesses can change their business models so that they are not duping unsuspecting users like you and me. And then personally, so that's one thing that we can do as a public policy, but personally, it comes down to your own boundaries. You see, like anything else, when you buy this device, it does not come with a rule book of how it's going to change your life and thereby within which guidelines you need to play within. Okay, so we need to do that for ourselves. And you see, we are the only generation that knows a life before and after the internet. And therefore, we are the only generation that can even conceive how we operated and how life was before. And therefore, for example, if somebody is born in the internet era, they want to understand what it means to be the fragmentation of the human mind and the fragmentation of attention. So then it is not just our responsibility for ourselves, but also it's our responsibility to take it to our future generations to talk about creating these healthy boundaries. So what are some of the ways in which we can create healthy boundaries? By knowing when you engage with technology, where do you put a stop and say, how do you use those different features that are built into your phone to either they gray out or they go to sleep or they go into the do not disturb mode, right? So engage, use those features. And then knowing things like, when I'm in having dinner, maybe I need to put, no technology on the table. I love this thing. There's a game here that happens amongst people where, you call for lunch and dinner. Well, I know it's during quarantine. We don't even have those things anymore, but let's even say a family within a pod, whatever your pod is, right? So if you're ordering food, or if you're not ordering food, even let's say if you're eating a meal at home, the first person to pull out the phone does the dishes. How's that for motivation to actually be involved in a conversation at dinner, completely focused on the gathering rather than on someone somewhere else, right? So creating these kind of good, healthy rules around the household is going to become absolutely necessary because this technology tsunami is coming at us. And like I said, there is billion-dollar empires that are working towards infiltrating every little slice of time that you have available in between things or even when you're doing things. Okay? So with that said, now I want to take you down a path of teaching you certain skills in which I want to show you how you can really build your attention. Okay, I'm going to start with something very simple. So I showed you today about what a micro meditation is, right? So within about 10 to 30 seconds, we were able to already shift, and many of you responded with calmness and collectedness and groundedness, etc. So now I'm going to extend that further. Okay, so because when you are learning to create attention, right? It's basically a 3-step process. Noticing, shifting, and rewiring. Okay? Noticing that you're being distracted, shifting to attention back to what is it that you're trying to focus on, and rewiring, that means when you hold your course, hold your attention in that direction, then you are actually building a muscle. Scientists refer to this as neuroplasticity. And you are never too old. There's no such thing. In neuroplasticity is an incredible breakthrough in understanding the human brain that says that the brain is actually constantly evolving and changing for the entire course of your lifetime. So that's the good news, bad news. So we talked about bad news. So the good news is we can rewire. So here's a quick little thing for you from the Iraq War. So a lieutenant runs up to the commander of the Allied forces. And he comes up to the commander and says, "Commander, I have some good news and bad news for you." And the commander looks at him and says, "What is it, Sergeant? Give me the bad news. I've seen it all." And so the lieutenant says, "The enemy has ambushed our supply lines. All food sources have been cut off. We don't have food coming in for the next foreseeable future. And we have to make do with camel poop." I said, what's the good news? The good news is that we have a lot of it. So, what is the good news here in the context of what we're talking about? Noticing, shifting your attention, and rewiring. The first step is about noticing. So we almost need to create these little mnemonics. We have to create these little tricks. And how do you know that you even drifted? Because you see that drifting is like being in a little dreamland. You don't even know that you're asleep. You know how in regular sleep, you don't know whether that story that's playing out is actually, when you're in your wakeful state or you're sleeping. So this daydreaming, this distraction, this being in this la-la land, when you need to be focused on doing something, finishing up your report, finishing up even listening to me right now. Maybe some of you are drifting. And so creating little, tools to notice that you are drifted is the first step. So for example, every time when you're driving and you see a stop sign, or you're going for a walk and you see a stop sign, or every time you stop to get a refill of water or sip water, or every time a clock that chimes at the top of the hour, whatever it is. So find your own thing. And I used to have this thing I have this app on my phone called traffic. I'm forgetting the name. It's basically it's a traffic app. Basically, it's mind traffic. And so what happens is that I have it set on a frequency, so every 2 hours or so. And then when that chime goes up, it's a little ding, so it's not very intrusive. So even if I'm in a meeting or what have you, it goes off very kind of inconspicuously. And then I just use that time to internalize. Just notice to myself that I am not lost somewhere. I'm actually paying attention to what I need to be. Okay? So create those little mnemonics for yourself, whatever works for you, whatever works in your environment. And so noticing. And then shifting. Shifting is bringing your attention back to where you need to be. Whatever it is that you picked, that you've drifted away from. Okay, so, and it's maybe something, if you're not working, if you're not doing anything, you might ask me like, then what is it that I bring my attention back to if I'm not focusing? And then maybe some things like the senses. Bringing your attention back to just listening. And it could be just the wind if there's nobody around you. Sensing the temperature of the air on your skin. Just bring your attention to that. Or seeing the beautiful vista or the scene or whatever it is, that a candle or a lemon in the corner of your room. And using that as a focus of your attention. And the third thing is rewiring. So when you can hold your attention, then you automatically begin to rewire your brain. Now, it's important to understand that we can't jump from 0 to 100. We can't go from kindergarten to PhD. So let's just be realistic. So make those very small incremental increases in the time that you're choosing to put your attention on something. Okay? And as we begin to develop, as we begin to recognize, oh my God, wow, I held my attention on my breath for 10 seconds as we did at the beginning of this exercise. And then slowly increasing this. By the way, this is the secret that Navy SEALs use when they are tested in harsh conditions, when they're training for the most inhospitable of circumstances. I don't know if you guys know this, but the Navy SEALs get tested. They ultimately tend to break down in 2 areas. And it's actually it's per design, right? So it's been designed to basically push a human being to the outer limits of their tolerance. And so the 2 areas in which they break down is when they are sleep deprived and have to deal with extraordinary cold, like putting them in cold water. And somewhere in the middle of that, the 90% who don't make it give up. Okay? So this technique which I'm sharing with you has come from experts who've been trainers for Navy SEALs. It's come from experts who have trained people for ultra marathons. You know, the kind that where they run like 17 hours through the night and into the day, that kind of thing. It comes from taking small bite-sized goals, achieving them, and letting the brain enjoy the success and then upping that. Okay? So that's how, folks. So today I'm going to teach you a way to extend that first set of meditation, that, you know, the little 10-second exercise or the 20-second exercise that we did, into how you can extend that further. And then as I leave you with it today, I want you to experiment with elongating it, expanding it further. So before we do that, we've been sitting here for the last 35 minutes. So I want you to give me a nice big shoulder roll. So let's first drop into our body. Give me a big shoulder roll, going all the way as high as possible with your shoulders and then dropping them down as far down as you can. And then I want you to reverse directions. If you're going front to back now, I want you to go back to front. And then I want you to go ahead and bob your head to the side, just like a pendulum in a clock. Letting your breathing, making sure you're not holding your breath in any of this process. And then go ahead and raise your one arm. So in my case, I've got my right arm. And then I want you to give it a nice stretch as you bend to the opposite side from where the arm is lifted. Breathing in as you come up. Exhaling, lifting the other arm and bending as you go to the other side. Let's do this a couple more times. Lifting the arm. Exhaling as you're bending, inhaling as you're coming up. And then find your center. Now, whether that means you're, again, if you're sitting, you're sleeping, you're lying down, standing up, whatever that case may be, I want you to drop in to your body, moving from the head space to the heart space. using breath as an anchor to bring our attention to the core of our being. Breathing in through the nostrils and exhaling through the mouth. Breath is life. And if I'm able to breathe without the support of any devices right now, I should be grateful, because there are millions of people around the world who at this moment cannot do what I can do without a ventilator. And as you're breathing into your lungs, into the very depth of your abdomen, notice the oxygenation of your body. Notice that this simple act is providing the necessary ingredients for each cell in this body to thrive. As you're breathing in, breathe into your toes. So with your attention down in your toes, feel the sensation there. And gradually bring your attention through the bottom of your feet, breathing into this area. Gradually coming back to the heels. And then as you make that journey upwards, breathe into your calf muscles. Feel the oxygen invigorate and energize the shin and the calf area. And then into your knees. Breathe oxygen and life into your knees. And let it go up through the thighs, the hamstrings, and the quadriceps. Bring your attention to your back, feeling the points of contact your back is making with the seat, the floor, or the bed where you're rested right now. Breathe into this region. The hips store a lot of our tension and stress. So as you're oxygenating this area with vital food source, and as you exhale, let go of any tightness, any old trauma, any old resentment. Just let it go. And let this attention gradually move from the softness of your hips into your abdomen, softening this area and oxygenating it. Letting go of any tightness. Breathing in security, because this is the chakra of feeling safe. And going into the region of your solar plexus. This is where you flame the fuel of courage. Moving further up into your heart region. Breathing in compassion. Letting go of any resentment. Moving into your throat area. This is the seat of creativity. Fueling the flame of creation in your body. And letting go of any bitterness or sourness that you've been holding of a past incident or incidents. Now bringing your attention into your head space. Oxygenating the region of holding wisdom and knowledge. Moving up into the region of the third eye. This is the region of discernment. Letting go of any clutter and garbage that came from just incessant indulgence in consumption through the senses, just letting it all go and becoming light and clear in the here and now. Notice a lightness that has begun to pervade your headspace and perhaps the rest of your body. There's a sense of presence that you may be feeling right now. This presence comes from being the human beings that we were, are, and will always be. And notice for yourself, where do you feel the sense of being in this body? Like the center of your being. Then notice what happens to time in this state of being. Ask yourself, does the being need any knowing to be any happier? Does the being need any doing to feel happier? And finally, does the being need anything to feel happier? The answer to the last three questions was a no. Voila, there you have it. The secret to happiness. So folks, at your own pace, I invite you back into the circle of friends from around the world. And I'd like for you to share your responses to those questions. Where did you feel the sense of presence in your body? What happened to time? Did the being need any knowing to feel happier? Did the being need any doing to feel happier? And does the being need anything to feel happier? So let's see. So helpful. No, no, and no. There you go. Secret to happiness unlocked, folks. You got your money's worth. The being needs to eat. Well, the being eats on this source, the soul food, right? The body needs to eat. The body sometimes needs very little to eat, but let's not confuse the being and the body. Yeah? You felt the sense of being in your heart space and needing nothing. Felt being in my heart, nothing needed to be happy. Thank you, thank you. This being needs to sleep. Probably true. I don't know what time it is or which time zone you're in, and maybe that's needed. But even recognizing that, right? Recognizing what the body needs is something that is a discovery in itself. So let's see. My brain stopped swirling. Fantastic. The being is content. That's the point. The being did not need any of the above. Very calming. Thank you. I appreciate it. If the being is sitting for a while, the only thing is comfy meditation cushion, LOL. Yes, well, that's a recognition, right? So the next time you sit like this for this duration, whether it's with a guidance or not, it's a nice thing to have a comfortable place. Completely agree. Definitely in the heart space. Time slowed down. Yes, time does completely cease to exist. The being needs less moral injury to feel happier. Yes, so that means less exposure to all of this external stimulus. Yes, so that's a moral injury in itself. Thank you for recognizing that, and thank you for calling it out. I found it a little difficult to focus in certain moments. And Anastasia, you know what? That is 100%. Don't expect you to be an ultra marathon runner on day one. We're going to take it in small increments. And I started with a 20-second exercise and I went to a 20-minute exercise. That's a pretty big jump in itself. So thank you for even indulging. Thank you for staying with me on this. So it's a big leap that we've all taken together. And so it's only normal, folks. It's only normal for you to find it to be a little bit, you're getting distracted. But the thing is, you have tried. And I told you, you just gradually keep upping that limit. You sat for the first 20 seconds, make it 40 the next day, make it 50 the next, whatever, 10-second increments. And like I said, that is where you become a superhero. Like I told you the example of the Navy SEALs. They recognize and they cherish the small victories. That's when they're able to accomplish this humongous, incredible feats. Okay, so please stay with it. Don't be disappointed. Every little thing is a win. Okay, I feel the same way when I knit. Yes, I was listening to Chris Bailey, one of the top scientists on the planet, on Focus, and he talks about this. He talks about when he's about to go and give this very important TED talk of his life where 7.5 million people have watched it around the world. He says, before I went onto stage in my hotel room, I was sitting and knitting. Here's a man who was talking about using. He says, I have found that to be my way to become present. Whatever it is your way, folks, find it. Meditation for some, yoga for another, walking, running, knitting, whatever it may be. Find it, but because that's your way to go into your heart space. It's important to recognize it and then use it when you need to. So I lost focus coming up, a root and sacral chakra. It's okay. It's okay. The fact that you made it all the way up there from the tips of your toes, it's incredible that you got that far. So good on you. So don't feel disillusioned. That's just, fabulous. You've made it more than halfway. Imagine if you sit with it a few more times, how much more concentration you can develop, and you can, you really don't even need my voice. There's beautiful music and all of that. You can do it on your own. That's the hope, folks. That's the goal. I do not want you to be tied to these trainer wheels. All of this, this, my voice and this beautiful, imagery and the sound and all of this is training wheels. The hope is that you can do this on your own. These are all little tips and tricks I want to share with you that you can then go off and you can be sitting on an empty park bench, or you could be sitting in a busy dinner table with your family there for Thanksgiving, what have you, and you can take just a few minutes. Nobody else needs to even know what you're doing, and you can go into this heart space and then come and offer from that space. So beautiful. I knit in conferences all the time. That's wonderful. Breath is all we need. Materials don't count. Happiness is in breath. Wonderful. Thanks for recognizing that and calling it out. Natalia says, how often should I meditate? Great question. So, okay, so now I'm going to go back to my practice. So I used to live like a monk for 18 years. Some of you know that, some of you don't know that. So in my practice, the two things that I've learned as absolute pillars in my daily routine, the morning meditation, evening meditation. So there's a lot of ancient wisdom that is now being supported by science to say that those two twilight zones in the day, when the sun rises, dawn, and when the sun set at dusk, those are incredibly powerful tools, folks, or times, folks, where when you take the time, the nature is supporting you in reaching that sense of equanimity and quietness and harmony. Think about it, right? If you've seen wild animals, I used to grow up seeing monkeys, run around the house, around the neighborhood, etc. And there comes a time they go do things at different times of the day, but when it comes to that evening time, it's so incredible. They will sit down on a branch or at the edge of a cliff or on a stone or what have you, and they will just become very, very quiet. You see, it's almost like they're doing their meditation, they're reflecting on what the day was like. It's amazing to watch how nature knows how to tune into the cycle of the day. We call this the circadian rhythm, right? So we need to also remember, we knew it at one point in time, our body knows it, but our minds are now so caught up in this, we are so enamored by light and all of the technology of light. When I say light, electricity and all of the gadgets that we've acquired, that we've forgotten this way in which we have evolved through millennia to become the species that we are, right? So twilight zones, that's my answer to your question. So let's see. What was the music? Okay, great question. So I listened to this person, just an incredible guy. I use it even in my meditations, my recordings. His name is Niall Phoenix. Niall Phoenix is based out of Melbourne, Australia, and he's an incredible composer, long time, I think over 40 years meditator. So clearly his music carries his message, his vibrations with it. So Niall Phoenix, he's got a number of different albums. I go to this particular site called Bandcamp where he offers them. I guess you can even find them on different resources like Amazon. I don't know, but I'm guessing you can. So, but I find it on Bandcamp. So that's where I get my music. So I'm sticking with you. Your bi-weekly are on my calendar. Well, thank you. Thank you for, your commitment, and thank you for your, sticking with my journey. Those of you who don't know this, I've been on this journey of doing these classes once a week since March of last year. So I record all of these sessions and I put it out on YouTube, and I think we've hit over 60 classes because there were certain periods early on you guys wanted me to do it every day, and then we slowly kind of tapered it down to when people started getting a hang of their life and this new, very, very unpredictable circumstances of this lockdown. So we went from a daily session to a weekly session, and so this is something that I'm been doing for a while, and I'm hoping to continue. And thanks to Insight Timer, now we have this incredible reach. Now there's over 325 of you from different parts of the world joining. And yes, thank you for your donations. I see the donations coming in as well. I just want you to know that I have an incredible group of people who support me, and they do it from their heart, guys. I have a sound engineer based in Bosnia. I have a video editor who's based in Barranquilla, Colombia. I have a social media person who's based in Philippines, in Baguio. Then I have a web designer in Amritsar, India. So all of these people are being supported by your dollars, by your donations. So I really appreciate that you are taking this time to be with me and share. This is all just an energy exchange, isn't it? We have what we share, we share what we have. We let this energy go out, and then the world finds a way, the universe has a way of giving back to us, helping us all to grow and to go to the next level that we're all trying to reach. So I do appreciate that. So I started meditating 2 months back. I've made it a rule to meditate twice a day. Fantastic. That's the best decision I've ever made. I feel at peace like never before. And I tell you this, that if you have to take one lesson from COVID, if there was one silver lining from all of this trauma and death and disease and lockdown and all of this frustration, it is that Mother Nature had to use this ultimate weapon to tell us that we have gone out of control and we need to slow down. Right? How many of you agree with me? How many of you agree with me that this world and life as we knew it was on this unstoppable trail towards our own destruction? It's not even like, we're doing it for some, it's not like we have to protect Mother Nature. Guys, I tell you what, Mother Nature will always know how to rebound itself. It's talking about, we're here, we're discussing life, human life as we know it. Right? So I'm seeing a lot of, high fives and yeses and thumbs up and this and that. So you all agree with me. So folks, this is your time to build this practice. This is the time for you to build a discipline, to bake it into your schedule, just like brushing your teeth, just like, taking a bath, what have you. Please put this into your schedule because, we cannot be consuming information. We cannot be at this sensory overload the way that we're going for much longer. The human brain has not evolved for us to be taking on data at this rate. See? So we need for you to take that data to convert it into information, which then becomes knowledge and that becomes wisdom. Guess what is the little step that you need to do? What is the process there to convert this data to wisdom? It is when you sit with it. When that information becomes yours through concentration, contemplation, and then application, that's when it becomes your personal power, aka wisdom. Wisdom becomes your strength when you learn to take it and know how to digest it and then process it. So good on you for those of you who've built a practice, and good on you for those of you who've made this a regular thing. So fantastic, keep at it. So we're at the top of the hour. So I think I've addressed for the most part a lot of your questions and concerns. I'm alive because I pay attention to nature's signs. I bought a whooping cough vaccine instead of a $100 blouse, etc. Yes, so right now this thing is it's just going crazy here in America. I don't know where you're joining from, but wherever you are, it's on a rampage here where they're saying CDC's already made an announcement. There's going to be 500,000 deaths before these vaccines are able to come into action and be able to control and actually bring down the numbers, right? And so let's see, there's a question here. Which would you recommend, guided meditation or self-meditation? So like I said, so guided meditation is your training wheels, right? If you don't know how to, so remember I told you about the 3-step process: notice, shift, and rewire, right? So we're taking little baby steps. So when you first of all notice that, hey, something is wrong, I'm way off kilter, I'm way off center, and then we're going to shift to what? Shift to, in this case, the breath, shift to consciousness, shift to heart, shift to source, whatever you want to shift to, right? So, and then you want to rewire requires certain practice. So what we're doing is I'm giving you little tools, little tips, little techniques by which you're able to build your own practice. And you know what? After some time, it becomes muscle memory. I don't need to be holding you while you're riding off your bicycle into the sunset, off on your own forever, right? So there is a place and time for training wheels, right? So which is what we're doing here. But the goal is not for you to be forever hooked onto them. The goal is for you to become independent. Like I said, do it anywhere, anytime, at your will. Because we don't know what circumstance. So you may be sitting on a plane and then you're on the tarmac, the gates have been closed, and then you realize, or the pilot announces, sorry, we have a 1 hour delay, a 2 hour delay, or God forbid, in some of the cases we've heard recently, for several hours, overnight even, because for whatever circumstance, the other side of the airport was not willing to open up. So what do? Everybody's kicking and screaming. You could do better. This training is going to teach you that you can come out on top of it and be a complete master of yourself. Okay, so we need certain tools to be able to help us to do that. So, and also the collective, right? The gathering is incredibly powerful. You guys don't realize, with all of us sitting here around the globe, synchronously meditating, putting our attention to one thing, we give out an energy. We create an orb that is not just around us, but we are taking over the entire planet. We're putting out this beautiful energy for those people, for those species that don't have access to this quiet and this peace and the ability to focus and the tools and by which we're able to communicate and connect with each other in these kind of very strange times, right? So we're not just meditating for ourselves. We're not just putting out this energy for ourselves. We're doing a service to humanity, folks, by doing this for ourselves. So take a pat on your back. Well done. Congratulations. So let's see. I've been meditating for over a year consistently and still want and need guidance in my practice, but the repercussions. Yeah, so I've been meditating for 20 years and I sometimes need to be, putting on headphones and listen to something different or listen even to myself. Sometimes I listen to my own recording, which has been from years ago, and I'm like, oh, wow, I forgot I said that and I needed it so much, right? Do you guys sometimes have this realization sometimes when you pick up a book or you listen to a meditation or you turn on a video? It's like, oh my God, exactly what I needed to hear. Do you guys get that? Right? So it's almost like you have a desire that you're putting out to the universe and you're taking the initiative, right? You came to this gathering today, right? And you've made the step. So this is your part. You're saying, hey, universe, I'm doing my part to show up. And guess what? The universe responds through Jay, through whatever, through the chatter maybe. There may be something that you learned through some of the comments that came through, right? I don't claim, I told you at the beginning of this, none of this is my wisdom. I'm sitting on the shoulder of giants. I'm standing on the shoulder of giants. And my unique recipe is I try to marry ancient wisdom from the East with modern science and research from the West. Because my brain is like that. I'm an engineer, but I've been a monk, right? So this is how I process it, and this is how I understand it. This is what brings me bliss, and this is what I share with you. So truly, this is something that is coming through. So we all can be conduits, and we all need those conduits sometimes to connect to that nugget of wisdom. That's just that thing that is going to unlock me to my next level. So absolutely, right? Let's see. I've been doing walking meditation daily, and that's fantastic, folks. Use your walking, use your running as a meditation as well, because you know what? When you're doing your walking, where is your mind? Ask yourself that question. Where is your thought processes? The body knows what it needs to do to get you to that level, the next point, the walk, the passage, the pathway. Many a times it's usually the same thing that we're doing over and over again. It's almost like subconscious. We don't need to be unconscious. The question is, what are you doing with your mind? Can you use that to gather your attention, to build this muscle that we talked about today? So absolutely, use your walking, use your running, use your bathing even, right? When's the last time you actually thought about how the soap is applied on my body? All of that is now muscle memory. Then the question is, what are you doing with your mind? You could be meditating in the shower, right? Okay, so are you familiar with Kripalu? Kripalu Institute in New York. Yes, I have a very dear friend who's one of the founding teachers there, Richard Miller. I don't know if you know him, Jacqueline. And I don't know if that's what you're referring to. This is my lineage of study. What is your lineage, ashram, where you lived and you studied? Good question. So my lineage is Raja Yoga. And those of you who don't know, Raja Yoga is a very ancient style. It's 5,000 years old. It's been written in the Bhagavad Gita. And so I studied with the Brahma Kumaris. That's my school, if you will. That's my foundation. But subsequently, I have studied a number of other traditions. And today's tradition was clearly one of those things that came not just from Raj Yoga, but it came from a number of other practices that I've engaged in. I'm constantly learning. I'm very curious as a human being. I'm constantly reading, as you can tell from the many references I've made today. And this is my thing. This is my jam. I want to understand consciousness. I want to help people become the best versions of themselves. I want humanity to be happy. We live in incredible times. We're so gifted. We're so blessed with so many technologies and tools and resources and comforts. And yet we complain about the simplest, meaningless things, right? The most trivial stuff. So much to be grateful for. And so that's my thing. This is what I study. This is what I practice on myself. And then finally, this is what I love to share. Great question, Jacqueline. Yes, I study with Richard. Okay, yes, okay. So we do have some common friends. Richard Miller is a dear brother. And so in fact, he's coming out with a book which he sent me last night. He wants me to write a testimonial for it. So just an incredible coincidence that you brought up that topic, Kripalu and him. So glad I found this today. Joining us from Western Australia. Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us. Okay, wonderful. Okay, let's see. So my kid is 5 years old, meditates every day for 5 minutes. He loves it. Fantastic. That's a great starter right there. Can the duration be increased at his age? He loves to meditate with me. Of course. And here's a question. So the way you're asking the question, I want to tell you, this is a very Western way of thinking. And no condemnation, no condescending, nature, no judgment here. But I just want to say, folks, one size does not fit all. You see, the issue with our Western upbringing, Western science, and Western education is somehow we think that one pill that's sitting in that shelf of the pharmacy is going to work the same way for everybody. No. When they talk about all of the side effects and all of that, our body chemistries are different. Likewise, our mind chemistries are all different, right? Our constitution is different. So I say try it. There's ways in which you can determine your mind chemistry, your body chemistry, your soul chemistry. And one of the best ways to determine that, if you don't have any of the great tools that our sages and saints have invented for thousands of years, experiment. Try something and say, is this making me feel better and more centered? Yes, do more. If not, slow down, give up, back off, right? So if you're finding that your child is enjoying this, ramp it up little by little, slowly, little baby steps up, right? We don't want to jump from 0 to 100 in one day. So try that and see that there may be a point at which there's growth, and there's going to be a plateau. Everything, that's just the nature, the S curve, and I'll talk about that in some other session when I have more time. But everything reaches that state where there's going to be growth, a plateauing, and then there's a decadence, right? This is the nature of how energy works, entropy and negantropy. Okay, great. So happy I came across you today. I have a question a bit above if you have the time. So we're 15 minutes past schedule, and what happens is Insight Timer sends me a message when I go over time and says, Jay, do you realize that you went X number of minutes over time? And so I don't know what that means. I guess they want me to be more accurate about how I predict the duration of these things. And that way, I guess I'm kind of giving you guys a clear expectation. But I do appreciate, there's 345 of you still hanging on. I know that number went up and it's kind of come down. So I know there's many of you who did comment that this body needs sleep, this body needs food. And so, let's do this, please. Jinko, I'm on this app and there's a question and answer, that you can go ahead and listen to one of my meditations and, you can automatically put out questions. And, oh, by the way, I also have in my profile on this app, the Insight Timer, I have a link to, my profile, my personal profile, where all my contact information is. Go ahead and send me an email and I'm happy to take your question offline. I'm happy to respond. And if it's something that pertains to the larger audience, our bigger global community of brothers and sisters that are here, then I might actually bring that up as a conversation item for our next week's topic, right? So please go ahead and reach out to me. I'm happy to take this offline, but I think for just in the respecting your time and your honoring your commitment to the 1 hour that you expected to be here, I want to say deep, deep bow of appreciation. I want you to keep positive, keep up your practice, and until I see you same time, same place next week, be well.